tomorrow being that 4th of the July. Today we are going to be covering some red, white, and blue alchemy in the spirit of first the red and white on top, because, well, 2 days ago now was Canada Day, and tomorrow is American 4th of July Independence Day. Both days celebrating the independence of, well, them darn monarch UK Brits, right? Still in London in our affairs. But what we have in front right there is a triple copper solenoid, about 14 or 16 gauge, that was hooked up on an anode side, and then started eroding away, corroding through the electrolysis into the monatomic materials, but the remaining material or solid pure copper element then turns into this what essentially looks like a hot state, like as if you've been heating it or almost molten, when in fact it had current through it. But when you leave it submerged with no electricity, no charge, but submerged in more monoatomic material in water, it will retain this red state properties. Sometimes also the white that is on top. The alchemist called this the calcification, and it's often when it is actually live, connected, corroding, eroding away, eating away, and deteriorating from the solid white state of metal down off as in flame in ash when it burns. But in this electrolysis anode water monoatomic Ormus breakdown of turning white. But the red pink is specifically the state that Sir Isaac Newton states is the transmutational state of all metal elements. And you can see here how it's both dark, very dark reddish maroon, as well as this bright orangey tinge pink before going to the white. And when you leave it, it will begin to crystallize and actually form into what look like a tiny reflective crystalline material on the pink state. And at the very bottom, we also see the blue oxidized diatomic or triatomic material or states as well. Okay, let's see. We've got a whole bunch of pictures, though, I do believe. Yeah, see there. Here we go. Look at that when flipped over, the pure red state there. This being some paper towel that I had in there just to see what... Or sorry, is that... No, that was copper sponge, actually. Like, what it looks like. Wow. What is growing in there? That's crazy. You can see the copper crystals. This looks like the pink crystalline almost growing. Was it paper towel or was it copper brisk? That is just, I don't even know. Some of the white state here. This is only copper, whatever it was surrounding. Huh. Yeah, it must have been. Yes, sorry. It's definitely the breakdown. So it's paper towel, and in this reaction, I had one of those copper scrubbies that broke down. That just has to be what it is. Okay, yes, absolutely. Now that I see that that is my silk screening oven in the background, then it was, I do remember the experiment now, and it was about 9 or 8 years ago, and that is correct, that was a copper scrubby. Here I'm experiment having the quartz in with the diatomic. I've got a video coming up. These hydrogen bubbles, what's fascinating is this is just a, once again, triple nano coated copper solenoid, essential Keshi plasma Magrav technology. But you'll see that when I play the video, these bubbles here on both sides, that it's not connected to any electrolysis or any electricity at all. It just starts producing. It does look like there might have either crystals or aluminum. Could be aluminum. Could be bismuth. Either or in the center, and just the amount of hydrogen that starts coming out of the reaction. Let's see if the video comes up. The different layers that form as well, very fascinating, and almost rewriting geology and microbiology in a bit, like what grows in these reactions and the red state of these copper coils that grow in different sealed conditions of the jars. They're almost homunculus. Oh, here's Tito. Tito was my first dog ever. That T2 is named after Tito. And there's Tito. Gotta love looking through the old pictures. So we got the, oh, wait, should turn that on. Oh, there she still is. What sort of different, trying to do plasma experiments. Argonite as well in there. And of course the Ormus. Let's see here. Oh dear. You might see viewer discretion advised. You might be forced into seeing some sort of marijuana paraphernalia. All right, we shall continue. Balancing some rocks, some crystals, working with the Zen at my old shop, my old shop. Boy, do I miss this place. Coils and experiments and art. And silk screening. Need to get the silk screening again. And R.I.P. Jason Chow, good friend of mine, and the old property owner, and I was the tenant. He rented me this place, deceased many years ago. Crying shame, died far too young. Hope he is in a better place. Okay. All right. So here we have experimenting, making both the vortex, like tornado style, different metals, aluminum, copper, brass, and then the aluminum foil amongst copper mixed with the different solenoids. You eventually do get batteries and capacitors that you're building. Oh man, I have not seen that door in a long time. think I still, yeah, I still have this one, that one, that one. Yeah. Gosh, I cannot. And the hydrogen, what we are looking at essentially right now, or what we were looking at earlier, are always set with Bert and Ernie. The coil's going, making the hydrogen, going the other way now. Let's see, is this the video? Here we go. Here's the video I was talking about. Hopefully you can hear me. Good morning, not really here. Bass player 10, Kiranay, Luke Nakahara, Austin Murphy, Someone M. Take a little trip with me, Brock Sampson, and anybody that I missed, everybody else joining in. You can clearly see right here the bubbles, the hydrogen constantly forming and coming out, as well as on the top end as well, both north-south ends of the triple nano-coated solenoid, and just a constant production, essentially a hydrogen cell battery. And that these things last and are active for at least 3 months straight when put in salt water by themselves. And that is a lot of what I'm working on, developing different hydrogen cells, as well as the nano materials and these monoatomic ormuses, both for agricultural. And now you can see here, if I pause it, oh dear, that's the what Keshi calls CH3 or copper, but it isn't copper C. I'm gonna have to look up the chemistry. I need to up my chemistry game. Here we have the pure olive green colored coil, and when you have a red state copper exposed from the anode side, or exposed from being in the ormus, or being in the red active state, taken out of the water and exposed to the air, it starts oxidizing, and before it turns blue, the outer shell, and eventually potentially black if you have it in the right conditions and it re-nanocoats itself, at which point then it will start reforming a inner red state core again, and pink crystalline core again, if it does form the outer nano coarse layer. So if you get this core or proper state active, then on the inner metal winding of the wires, it's actually red, just like this is currently red, but it's dying as it oxidizes, and then it builds this first inner green, and then it'll turn to this light teal blue outer shell, and then sometimes all the way back to the black. And now right here we have some of, this is the from pure copper, and once again I have some paper towel collecting some of it to dry it out, and this is made from copper on copper. I believe Keshi calls it yeah, Cu is copper, right? So I don't know why he writes it as CH3 as if it's carbon hydrogen 3. It would be copper hydrogen 3. So Cu 3 or H3. Let us continue. He also calls the white state material CO2 GANs, and it's like, I don't believe it's CO2. Where's the carbon coming from bonding with the oxygen? When in fact, if you have it it's the white pure monoatomic. It's whatever the element that's eroding down, and not pure monoatomic ormus. It is not CO2. That's a major discrepancy I have with Keshe's teachings, and wonder where he gets that, and where, like, this mass spectrophy that needs to be tested on all of these materials to actually see what material they are. So here I have it now paused on some of these coils, solenoid single copper. You can see the red, pink below in the water, and on the outer edges of it still in that pink state that was most active and corroded, eroding away. And then the olive green that it turns into, and then finally, as it's drying, fully drying out and crystallizing, that teal blue, full diatomic oxidized. Right here is some of the pure copper monoatomic GANs or ormus that I made from just copper on copper anode and copper cathode together, harvest separated and being washed. Here's a crystal that I had submerged and tested in one of the reactions. And then I was rinsing it out with fresh water, getting the salt out, and you can see the salt crystallizing out of the quartz crystal that I had in the salt reaction. Right in here, some more monoatomic copper and copper, I believe, or maybe copper and silver. This one I had nickel and iron anode cathode. That one as well, I believe. Yes, this was the one that I had the original scrunchy, copper scrunchy on the anode, and that it eroded away. And that the thing that I didn't realize, so here's the thing. Some of the times, especially if like I was ever around like more questionable heavier metals other than like copper, even like when messing with aluminum, I try to use gloves when touching it and stuff, and if I get it on my hands, immediately wash it off. The copper I sometimes absorb. Every time I do, it is ridiculous how like electric, like I literally shot bolts out of my freaking fingers when touching other metal things after absorbing it. The hair stands up on my back every time I think about it. I don't recommend it. It's kind of poisonous, but I do get kind of sloppy with it. But it's just to like, guinea pig on myself, and get that shock every so often that you just, it's electrifying. Don't recommend you try it because, well, yeah. Oh, see right there, you can see the silver 1 ounce that was on there. But what I didn't realize at the beginning here was a lot of the things that I thought was zinc was in fact just, oops, didn't mean to mute myself, was just actually coated a whole bunch of ferrite. Why can't I think of the name? It always slips my mind every single time. I know it. Galvanized steel, but it was sold to me as just zinc and pure zinc. but instead it was in fact galvanized steel. So I would always get a bunch of the pure zinc off of it for the first few days, and then it would, or about a day, and then it would always turn into like straight rust, and the iron ferrite and like pollute it and whatnot. But anyways, then I just realized what it was and got real zinc and also used the iron for iron. Fascinating stuff is when it both neodymium as well as pure ferrite iron core anodes that I've eroded down into the monoatomics and diatomics, it's actually stripped them of their magnetic properties. I've shown that a few times with Jeremiah doing them live. What I meant to say though is I'm very sloppy and sometimes even will touch the diatomic blue materials that with my hands. I always immediately wash it off. You also get the zap from it, but I'm not entirely sure if it's potentially harmful. It can go to heavy metal poisoning, although I have never suffered it so far. I should probably get some blood work and test again sometime soon and get another update, make sure I'm still good. Let's see. This video is done. What was I wanting to continue with? Right, the red state. Here we go. The red and the white. Look at that. Just a beautiful example. Here we got blue, the green and the red, and the blue. Red, white, and blue, and green for all of you. The yellow, the sulfuric, the red, the pink, blue, the green, the black. Then right here, look at how white it is. This is the actual picture of the pink, red, white burning through the aluminum, and this copper coil burning through pure aluminum. Like, look at that EVO action going on there. Not connected to anything. Well, at that point, it was just disconnected. But yeah, so here you can see there's the top of it that was connected to the 5 volts in the water that had it activated. When I got to that white, pink, red state, look at it just disintegrating, burning through the aluminum foil. Fascinating stuff. Glad I still had these pictures and took them. Look at this. Look at that. Yo, that's the aluminum burning through, or the red copper burning through the aluminum. Like melting it into nothing. That is pretty freaking epic. Yeah, like actually like scorched my hand. It was so hot. Like even down here. Like this was a fresh piece of aluminum that like I just wrapped it on. It's just like, if you haven't seen the video, I recommend watching the video that I immediately recorded after I started fully wrapping it and like trying to cool it down, and like eventually covered it, and I was just so shocked. See here, it's there. I got it. Oh, still perfect, even better. You can see it like burning. Look at it, smoldering. Smoldering right there. Sublimation maybe. Bubbling, like that's the aluminum bubbling onto the copper and burning. Aren't they? Aren't they? So this is like red state matter, like burning. Look at the white that it is too, as it crumples down and like disintegrates into the red copper. Like this is straight EVO. Plasma, red state plasma. And all this was copper that came out of salt water. That like, look at how it spreads and burned. It was like, it's this crazy reaction as it's going through, melting, eating it away. I am so stoked that I got so many pictures of these, of this thing happening. Look at this. We got toroids forming, and what the, like, the copper coil is all the way up here, yet it's literally eating, burning, freaking Liechtensteining, whatever the heck, all down that far. I feel like Bob Greenyer right now, analyzing this stuff. But shout out to Bob Greenyer and the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. We shall be playing some more of Bob's work later on in the stream. And look at this, how pink this stuff is as it's disintegrating that aluminum and bubbling it away. Like, that's just plain copper and aluminum. White calcification, eroding, eating, decay state that the alchemists talk about, the red mercury state that they talk about, that flame. So here it is now. I've wrapped it completely up in that aluminum, and it started to smolder a little bit, and then I shot this video. It didn't burn all the way through. I guess I smoldered it a little bit too much. I was so disappointed. It 100% does. If you can listen in the background, sorry, this is only 39 seconds, 37 seconds, but and then I wrapped it all the way, and then I put it into as a new experiment, and wrote it away in this guy. It's more white states, the plasma flow moving. Oh, an orange peel, trying it, seeing what happens to it. The crystallization that forms and formed over this, there was literally a layer of nano water over this coil, and then like this nano crystal, pure salts form, but more than salt, pure crystal nano layer that would seal it, almost like ice, but it was salt and the metals that it was just fascinating. And then under this, it was pure red or pink. As soon as you activate it, if you stir it up, it goes yellow. Here, look at this. You can actually see the sparkling pink crystals a bit, capturing the sparkle glare. Like, oh, it almost looks gold and silver. Maybe. These were originally all olive green, now completely teal. And still you can see that the pink in the inside. And I will be doing streams. I need desperately to do fundraising. This is a very good time to bring up fundraising. And that my broke ass, if you would like to do more streams learning on how to make all these solenoid coils and help the research out, please do donate. All links are in the descriptions. Because I am extremely broke. Wife lost her job a little bit ago. And yeah, we are needing my ass to get more work. And look at all of these babies. I've literally made hundreds, if not thousands of these, and intend on making thousands more as it's fun. I've got a lot of experiments going live today that we will be showing more. Oh, we're at the end. Chase is saying, fuck you. All right, well, fuck you too, Chase. Just kidding. Love you, bro. Old roommates. This is a good time that I should remind Justin Fletcher. That would be hugely appreciated, and I do appreciate everybody that does support this channel and helps and does so much. And let us now go here to show that pure silver ounce coin. We're going to be showing a bunch more of this nano technology, right? Make us some red mercury, darn tootin', that's what it's all about. And that throughout the shows, throughout the streams, I will change to mark different segments. You see like the logo there, as well as especially the color of Boom, so that I can do a new edit and it's a new topic. So we're gonna move here for the next I'd say about an hour to play a ridiculously amazing lecture that I just found. It's the only video on the Global Breakthrough Energy Movement's Vimeo page, and it's a doozy of a good one. So we're gonna bring that up right meow, I think. Don't you just love BurnEye's Alchemy Lab? Yes, New Frontiers. Don't. Well, I don't know about the claims on it, but we are doing live tests that will also be shown today of this Ormus in agriculture, and we're also going to be doing some more explanations and live demonstrations in the far left, right by Bender's head, above Bert there. You can both see some maggrav coils that I'm going to be plugging in to produce hydrogen, and what that big jar right in the back is plugged in, and it is making a whole bunch of monoatomic aluminum, as well as zinc. The middle one is copper and silver, where I'm going to be harvesting it and resetting up a silver on silver because it's currently a full moon today, and that is the best time that you want to make silver. So we're going to retest that and get the silver that is currently silver copper that is currently in the middle jar there, a copper maggrav coil as the cathode, and then the silver, pure 1 ounce silver as the anode that's been breaking down as the majority of that matter, and that we will also do a close-up on the third sealed jar and the fourth sealed jar there, and the actual reactions that are ongoing with them. The first one in there, or the third overall jar there, next to Oscar and Ernie, and the one coil. It is been sealed for a full 36 hours now, and it's still bubbling non-stop, producing hydrogen off of the anode cathode that I have essentially created with connecting them with a couple copper wires above the line of the waters. And that creates a differential, especially with them then going down into the water, submersing, going up, connecting to each other, and establishing that differential circuitry. And boom, you've got a productive ongoing situation. And yeah, so without further ado, let me bring back this epic Kevin Kohal. And hopefully there's a new breakthrough energy movement lecture soon, or series conference soon, as they've always been beyond awesome, and they haven't had one for a while, since at least the lockdowns, but now they're over, world's getting back, it needs to continue again, and I haven't even seen all of this. It's epic. Let's watch it. Welcome, Holistic Media. One Love India, beautiful souls. Love you for being here. Xenoholia, Diet Dazzle, HVAC Alex, Simula Care, Justin Fletcher, FGraph 72, Brian A. Metz, not really here, JB Phillips, Christine Perry, Vitska, Someone M, Luke Nakahara, Melissa Crocker, Kernay, Austin Murphy, bass player 10. Hope everybody's having a beautiful day. I'm gonna mute myself out for a bit, and this is one epic lecture coming up.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin. And here we go. Are we good to go, guys? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Global Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference 2016. This is the first day, and today is going to be Ken Rolla. Ken's a personal friend of mine. We met several years back at some of the Ormus Alchemy conferences. He works with the Ormus and etheric elements and combining them to create orgonite and work with the subtle energies for healing, health, technologies, growing plants, and a bunch of other subtle energies and dynamic processes that he's going to be presenting on today. So I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Ken Rolla.
Hey, everybody. You ready to party? You ready to party? All right, let's ditch this joint and go then. No, I tell you, I appreciate everything the Global BEM folks have done. They always attract the best speakers, and that's why I come. So anyway, really, truly, you know, it's like when they ask me, I just say, yeah, absolutely, because I know they're going to have an amazing lineup of people. So anyway, yes, my name is Ken Rolla. I'm from the Daytona Beach, Florida area. And if you guys want to know more about me, you can check out my website, my bio at freshandalive.com. So let me get this thing started here. Okay, there I am. So I'm going to be talking about new frontiers in healing with Ormus and scalar energy. And I'm going to be going fast because I like to throw a lot of information that you guys can actually use. I'm very solutions oriented. And so you probably will have a hard time keeping up with me if you're taking notes. So don't worry. You can go to my website and download these slides at downloads.freshandalive.com. Now, first of all, disclaimer, anything that I talk about in this presentation, please don't construe this as any kind of medical or health advice. This is just me sharing my ideas and opinions with you. The FDA wouldn't like it very much if you actually used any of this stuff, so please don't. Please always do what the FDA says and make sure that you always use a licensed healthcare practitioner when dealing with your health. So, and really, don't take my advice. I'm telling you right now, don't take my advice. All right, so what is Ormus? For those of you that aren't familiar with this, it seems like a lot of people have heard.
All right, I just had to pause it there. Once again, there is zero health advice being given here. Do not try any of this shit at home. You will probably hurt yourself or harm yourself. I myself, for over 9 years now, have been making the pure white monoatomic gold and silver combination, and then the colloidal water. You know, I just put it in with the ice, and I don't recommend doing it if you don't know what you're doing, because you'll probably hurt yourself. But if you do know what you're doing, you're good. And who knows? Maybe I'll live 1,000 years. Maybe one day. We shall see. On that note, back to the Ormus lecture. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Kind of familiar with it, but it's kind of like this nebulous thing, and it sounds magical, some of the things that people say about it. But basically, Ormus elements are they're actually very ancient. They're not newly discovered. I'd say they're newly discovered in the United States and in modern science, maybe in the cutting edge of science. But basically, they're simply...
No, I only drank the water, the colloidal water,
minerals
not the
that exist on the periodic chart, the platinum group metals, gold, silver, mercury, copper, that can exist as individual atoms rather than atoms connected together. Now, that sounds very simple, but that has a lot of very profound implications. Normally, all these elements are metals, and as metals, they are crystalline, which means that their atoms are attached to each other in some kind of three-dimensional grid pattern. And that's what makes them metallic looking. That's what gives them their hardness and their structure. Well, you can send them through certain processes and actually break them apart into individual atoms, which according to conventional physics is impossible. And yet it happens, and you can do this yourself. And when you do this, these atoms become a completely different form. They look like white ceramic powders, as you can see here in this picture. All these different metals, whether it's copper, silver, gold, mercury, or whatever, they all become white ceramic powders when they're in this state. They have really weird physics. They're superconductors. But what makes them really weird is that they're actually interdimensional or multidimensional matter. They're not conventional matter the way we think of it. Part of the matter is this three-dimensional mineral that we see in our 3D reality, but the majority of it is actually existing simultaneously in other frequencies or dimensions of time and space. And so this gives them very special properties. They're really weird. They connect different frequencies or dimensions of.
Sorry, I have to pause it there. Can't keep interrupting him. That's why Keshi is correct and states that it is plasma matter. Plasma matter being a fourth higher state dimensional matter, and why I also believe that this is potentially the quantum material matter. Quantum matter, because it is not quantum locked as a diatomic yet. It is single monoatomic, or the triatomic, where quadro, all the different nano higher dimensional states that it forms, but they're higher dimensional matters.
Time, space-time to our 3D reality, and therefore we can use them in some very interesting ways. Now, you would think, that ingesting mercury, for example, we know ingesting mercury is very, very toxic, but in these monoatomic forms, these elements become extremely rejuvenative and regenerative to living organisms. So you can make them in certain ways, particularly in natural ways.
Mercury,
and they can have extremely powerful healing effects and regenerative effects. And as more healers and supplement companies and inventors are figuring this stuff out, they're coming out with more and more supplements and technologies that utilize Ormus elements in them. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, let's see here. Let me find my little remote. There we go. So there are a lot of really interesting applications with these Ormus elements, from space and time travel, because they're interdimensional. I have met scientists who actually worked on projects making anti-gravity time-traveling flying saucers, where they would coat the surfaces of a saucer and use a device like a Searle effect generator type device to create a singularity or a black hole, and enlarge it up around the spacecraft, and actually be able to blink a spacecraft out of our 3D reality and have it show up somewhere else in time and space. So that's one application. There are applications I'm going to be showing you today in agriculture. I don't think any of you guys probably are working on an anti-gravity flying saucer right now, so I'm not going to bother getting into that. But we will get into applications for healing in agriculture, and materials engineering. There are some really interesting uses in that as well. So how is this stuff? Where does this stuff come from, first of all, and how is it created? Well, in nature, it's all around. It's very abundant in nature, especially here in Texas. There's a lot of these monoatomic elements, these Ormus elements, in soil. And by the way, I forgot to mention that. Let me back up a little bit. The Ormus, Ormes, or Ormus is simply an acronym for orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. So that's just a fancy acronym that a man named David Hudson came up with to describe these very interesting elements. So they can be created alchemically, and this is what David Hudson and others have been teaching. And as a matter of fact, our good buddy Vernon Roth here today has some amazing Ormus products, and I don't know if I would classify them as alchemical. I think they are, really. But he has a very, very unique process for making his, and his are some of the very, very few that I actually like to use and recommend. But at any rate, you can make them alchemically using processes with, for example, mixing sea salt with lye and water and sending it through certain processes and extracting out a precipitate, which you can then, some people will ingest it. I feed it to plants or microbes. I don't ingest it directly. And usually I don't recommend that, because most of the ones that I've come across are toxic, either with heavy metals, or they also have some negative side effects, because when you ingest these things, because they're superconducting, they'll actually plug into the body and raise the superconductivity in the body artificially, and then you wind up manifesting things you didn't intend. And we're going to talk about how that happens. But at any rate, most alchemical ormus products, I don't recommend people ingesting them, but they're great usually to feed to plants and ferments. They're also made by microbial action in the soil. Obviously, plants can't suck boulders up through their roots, so they like to eat little tiny particles of minerals called angstrom particles, which are just a few atoms of a mineral bundled into a particle, or individual atoms, which are the monoatomics. And there are things that you can do to feed the soil to increase the level of monoatomics in your soil. And when you do that, you get insane growth. Insane growth. Like here in Texas, I know of a company, which unfortunately I can't name because they've had attempts on their life actually, that developed a product for agriculture that you can put on the soil and it will break the minerals down into monoatomic and angstrom particles extremely well. And they did field trials in Texas where you've got a lot of these minerals in the soil, but they're not very bioavailable. And they did a field trial at a tomato farm. They were getting tomato plants 15 feet tall with 3,000 to 4,000 nutrient-dense tomatoes per vine. And not some kind of crazy chemical abomination, but like a real healthy, strong tomato plant, nutrient dense. There are also, when you feed these ormus elements to GMO crops, it will actually unwind their DNA and revert them back to heirlooms, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. So there's some really useful things you can do if you know about ormus, and it's really easy to make. So microbe action in soil is one way. You can feed microbes to the soil to increase that. You can also use volcanic rock powders, which we'll talk about more. You can make these ormus elements by vortexing mineral water in magnetic fields. And there's actually either ways of building your own device with a blender, or you can buy a device to do that. Photosynthesis is one of nature's greatest ways at making these ormus elements. So if you feed certain types of minerals to plants, they will uptake them and they will create ormus elements. That's one of my favorite ways of getting it, by the way. I grow a lot of my own food, and it's a great way to get these ormus elements that are in a format that the body understands and can utilize. And then fermentation, especially in magnetic fields. Microbes are nature's nanotech. They like to eat big things and break them down into little things, or eat toxic things and break them down into non-toxic things. And so you can actually make kraut in your kitchen, or beer, or wine, or medicines using different ferments. And you can throw rock powders, you can throw herbs into them, you can throw all kinds of things that are high in these ormus elements, but they're not very bioavailable. You can ferment them, and that will break them down and make them become bioavailable. And if you put these ferments inside of a magnetic field while you're doing that, which is actually really simple to do, then you can get incredible amounts of this stuff and have really amazing effects. And another source of these minerals is in volcanoes. So if you guys have ever seen you probably heard about that pesky volcano in Iceland a few years ago that was blowing ash all over Europe, and everybody was ticked off because it was interfering with the airplane flight lanes and stuff. Well, that's actually a really wonderful event for the Earth because it remineralizes the Earth, especially with these ormus elements, these monoatomics. But that volcano, you can actually go to YouTube and you can search on Iceland volcano lightning, and you can see video of this volcano as it's blowing, and you'll see lightning shooting up out of the volcano into the sky. And the reason that is because one of the properties of these superconducting minerals, these ormus elements, is that because they're superconductors, they create superconducting fields, which are known as Meissner fields, and they can generate huge amounts of energy that want to ground out. And that's exactly what goes on when these volcanoes are blowing. They're creating all this ash, all this highly monoatomic ash, and it's creating these Meissner fields that discharge, and you see all this lightning. And of course, conventional scientists are baffled. They don't understand it because they don't know about monoatomics. But that's one of the things one of the evidences you can see of the superconductivity with these volcanic minerals. And the cool thing is, you can take these minerals and do things with them to get ormus into your own self. Oops. I don't know what happened there. Did I hit the wrong button? There we go. Okay. Okay, so that's a little bit about ormus. Now, what is scalar energy? Now, I don't really like the name scalar energy because it's kind of confusing. If you come from a science background in particular, there's scalar physics and there's scalar mathematics, and it really has nothing to do with what people are referring to of this subtle energy known as scalar energy. But Dr. Konstantin Meil from Germany has kind of popularized that phrase in certain circles, and so I kind of got hooked on it back in the day when I was listening to him. And so I'll for argument purposes, we'll just call it scalar energy. But it's just a subtle energy that's superluminal, meaning that it travels faster than light. And it actually is light, but it travels faster than what we've been told is the speed of light. As it turns out, the speed of light is not fixed, and it's not necessarily 186,000 miles per second either. The speed of light can change, and this particular energy is photonic light energy, but it travels far beyond what we've been told is the speed of light. And it's actually kind of like the Force in Star Wars. It's really what everything in our 3D and non-physical universe is made of. It's this energy that I liken to God consciousness, and it flows through the universe, and it slows down and it coagulates into this 3D reality, this physical reality of ours. And so scientists now are seeing evidence of this. You can actually see this in mainstream physics journals where they're discovering that this superluminal light is flooding out of the centers of galaxies. This is actually an article from phys.org, which is a very mainstream physics journal, where they talk about these furious black hole winds of superluminal light. So this energy comes out of the centers of galaxies, and it's zipping out, and as it comes out, it's spiraling. It likes to spiral. It always spirals, and it's branching as it goes. So it's spiraling and it's branching as it goes. It comes zooming out of the centers of galaxies, and it follows this toroidal flow around the galaxy, which we'll show a picture of. This is another physics journal, NASA Science News. There are plenty of black holes that gobble energy. Now scientists or astronomers spotted one in a distant galaxy that's giving some of its energy back. And actually what's going on is these so-called black holes, they're actually a toroidal field. They're a donut-shaped energetic structure where energy is coming out one center of the donut and whipping around, spiraling around the donut and going back in the other side. Scientists call them black holes and white holes, but what they really are is a singularity at the center of a toroidal field. So the whole universe, as Nassim Haramein and others are pointing out, is a web of these black holes, these singularities. And these singularities are found at the centers of galaxies. They're found at the centers of suns, the centers of planets, the centers of any spinning bodies. Nassim is also saying now that protons are singularities. The whole universe is a web of these singularities. Human beings have a web of these singularities, these black holes within our bodies that correspond to what have been called the acupuncture meridians and the chakras. We'll get a little bit more into that here in a moment. But so this flow of energy is coming from the centers of galaxies, flowing outward, and it's relayed from sun to sun to sun outward to us. So ultimately it comes down to us from our sun and up from the center of the earth, because planets have these singularities at their center, these interdimensional portals for this energy. And so it's coming up from the center of the earth down from the sun. And that's why we have these practices like Qigong and Tai Chi and Ayurveda and different practices, Kundalini Yoga, where you're taking energy in from above and down from below and bringing it in and manipulating with your mind within the body. What you're actually doing is taking this energy that creates and can alter matter, and you're using it to do exactly that, usually for improving healing and for consciousness and expanding awareness. And with amazing effect, by the way. I mean, there are people who cure incurable diseases all the time simply with meditation or yoga, things like that. So as I mentioned, these galaxies have these toroidal shaped fields with this energy zipping around, spiraling around. And so do solar systems, so do suns, so do planets, so do human beings, so do cells, so do molecules, so do atoms, and on, and phenomena. From the microscopic to the macroscopic, we've got this web of these black holes, and each of them have these toroidal fields around them, and you can do things with them. As I mentioned, the chakras in the body, what they really are is large deposits of these ormus minerals along the spine. And because these ormus minerals are superconducting, they open up a place for the singularities to occur. So throughout the body, the acupuncture meridians, The DNA is loaded up with these ORMUS elements. The brain neural pathways are loaded up with them. The spine has these large nodes of them, and that correlates to the chakras along the spine. Now, the brain is actually a scalar wave transceiver. It picks up this God consciousness flowing through the cosmos and rebroadcasts it outward and creates this local toroidal field around you. And this is how we create our reality. It's not some metaphysical metaphor. We actually put out this field, we grab this energy, or we're conduits of this energy, and we put out this field. And this is how, because this energy can be converted into matter and other types of energy that we can see and measure, this is how we create our reality. So if you understand that, this is one of the biggest secrets that the powers that be on this planet do not want us to understand. They don't want us to understand our own power, our ability to create our reality, and our ability to alter matter and alter reality, especially within our own bodies. Now, as I mentioned, the DNA is loaded with these ORMUS elements, and it gives the DNA superconducting properties. And so this is how consciousness meets the physical body. When you hear doctors talk about the mind-body connection, well, if there really is a mind-body connection, then there has to be a mechanism for it. And that mechanism is in the DNA. The DNA is a superconducting antenna, and it is the interface, or one of the interfaces, I should say, for consciousness and the physical body. Now, crystals also contain these monoatomic ORMUS elements in them. They're hiding within, and again, you have to understand that when you analyze elements to see if you can find these ORMUS elements in them, in conventional analysis techniques, they don't show up because they're this meta matter, and they actually collapse into other forms. They collapse into other elements. So in analysis like spectroscopy, for example, which is kind of like the acid test to determine what something's made of, these ORMUS elements don't show up because they collapse into other elements. And so they don't show up as monoatomic gold or whatever. But they're hiding within crystals, and this is what gives crystals the piezoelectric effect. For you geeks out there, you physics or engineering geeks, the piezoelectric effect is simply the ability for a crystal to emit electricity. You know, when you have a gas grill, for example, and you've got the little red button and you push it, the button on the gas grill to ignite the grill, what it's doing is smacking a little piece of quartz crystal that's connected to two wires, and it shoots out electricity and makes it spark, fire your grill up. So that's the piezoelectric effect. Well, it turns out if you squeeze on a crystal instead of smacking it, it will put out scalar waves, and you can do some very interesting things with it. Now, the ancients observed this. This is nothing new to humanity. The ancients have known about this for, as long as we've been around, and they observed it in nature. They observed it, for example, in eggs. The egg form is very, very conducive to the living organism, the growing living organism inside of it. And it's because the shape combined with the fact that this bone, this calcium that an egg is made of, is high in monoatomic elements. So what you've got is a superconducting antenna that directs this God consciousness flowing through the cosmos in concentrated doses into the inside of that egg form. So the ancients noticed this, and they started building devices and things to mimic that. And that's why you see the Greek amphoras, for example, that have this egg shape for storing food and water. Or kimchi pots, for example. Kimchi pots and the old amphoras, they were made out of high ORMUS soil. Soil that's high in these volcanic minerals in this egg form that concentrates, just like an egg, it concentrates life force inside the vessel. Then in the case of kimchi, the traditional kimchi pots are always made out of specific clay, and they bury it in the ground for several months. It goes through several different astrological cycles. A lot of this knowledge has been lost in modern times, but the ancients knew to put this stuff in the ground at certain times when the moon and the sun were in certain positions, to leave it in the ground for a certain period of time before pulling it out. And then what happens is you get much higher levels of nutrients and much more digestible food. Well, Rudolf Steiner noted this as well, and he developed a method that's now used in biodynamic farming, where, for example, when I was first introduced to this years ago, I was, out of engineering school, but I wasn't aware of any of this stuff. I thought it was absolute nonsense. Some guy showed me, he took a 5-gallon bucket of water, he put some cow poop in it from a cow horn, stirred it up with his hand, and stirred it and vortexed it in one direction for a while, and then he would reverse and vortex in the other direction. He said, now if you put this on your crops, it'll make them grow better. And I thought he was totally insane. But it turns out he was correct, because I didn't understand the very advanced physics involved in it. But Rudolf Steiner figured out that with chemical farming, this was back in the early 1900s, even then, it was obvious to him that chemical farming was going to destroy so much soil that we wouldn't have enough compost to go around to heal it all back and bring it back. So he developed these homeopathic methods for healing soil by taking cow poop and stuffing it in a cow horn and burying it underground for a full year. And then you dig it out and you take it and you put it into water and you vortex the water for a certain period of time in one direction and the other direction. And then you take that and dilute it and you spray it on large amounts of land, and it will radically improve the land because it accelerates microbe growth in the soil, which breaks down toxins, which improves nutrient levels, et cetera, et cetera. And so it really does work. And so when you understand the physics, this makes a lot more sense. This is actually a picture of a traditional preparation of what they call Steiner preps, where you take these cow horns, and again, these horns are Fibonacci curved. They're sacred geometrically curved horns made out of high Ormus material. So you've got a superconducting cone in a Fibonacci curve that focuses energy into the inside of the horn, which, by the way, the reason horns are shaped the way they are and animals have them is because it's an antenna for them. That's why deer and horned animals are so sensitive to what's around them. They have to be. They have to know what predators are going to be around them. So you've got this superconducting antenna that's directing all this energy, this life force energy, into the inside of it. You stuff it full of cow poop, which is a probiotic mineral supplement, basically. You let it sit for a year. The earth goes through the full astrological or astronomical cycle and all these different energies. One of the things I didn't mention is that these Ormus elements, because they're superconductors, they're extremely sensitive to fields. So they can pick up the electromagnetic and scalar energies coming from many, many, many light years away in our cosmos. So when they're in the ground, they act like antennas in the ground, and they capture this cosmic energy and bring it into the soil and create fields within the soil that are very, very beneficial to living organisms, including microbes and earthworms and plants. So when you put them in these horns, you've got this perfect curve. The microbes eat up the cow poop, and what you're left with is a high Ormus mineral, very, very dense Ormus mineral supplement, which you can then put into water. And then when you vortex it, especially if you vortex it in a magnetic field, you'll make the Ormus even more bioavailable. And then when you feed it to crops and soil, makes the microbes happy. They grow bigger. They eat more rocks, break them down into more bioavailable particle sizes, and the plants can uptake them, and then they're much healthier. Now, the ancients, again, they observed this. They were very observant of what was going on in nature. They were probably having help from extraterrestrials as well. And they noticed that volcanic mountains put off these vortexes. There are stories of shamans and medicine people who could feel the energies in different power spots, and they could identify them. They would mark them. And, of course, archaeologists and paleontologists find these stones marked in certain ways, and they don't have an explanation for why they were marked. But they marked stones, and they marked places that were high in these superconducting elements that put off these scalar fields and vortexes. So this is a picture of Mount Shasta in California, and I had a friend who gave me this picture, and she said, "Oh my God, there's UFOs over Mount Shasta." And I said, well, there may be UFOs over Mount Shasta, but that's not why those clouds are shaped that way. That's the scalar wave vortexes coming off of the mountain that's spiraling upward like an upside down tornado of energy, and it's slicing up the clouds into those shapes. And that's exactly what's going on. You've got this singularity at the center of the earth that's emanating all this scalar energy, and it's in a geometric pattern. This singularity at the center of the earth is shaped like a crystal. It's like a very complex cubic octahedron, for those of you that are following Nassim Haramein. And these vortices of energy come out of the apexes of that geometry and shoot out to the surface of the earth. These volcanic mountains capture it. They're like the chakras of the earth. They capture it, and then they spin these vortexes up out through them. And the types of minerals that they're made of are oscillators. Crystals are all oscillators. So you put energy in one frequency, it comes out the other side a different frequency. So these mountains are oscillators. They put out certain frequencies that are harmonious to living organisms. And then the rotation of the Earth combined with the gravitational field drags them down across the surface of the Earth. So you got these spiraling vortexes going along the surface of the Earth. And that is what people call the ley lines. So if you're living in proximity to a ley line or one of these mountains, you're going to see the animals and the plants grow healthier, and therefore normally the people are going to be healthier as well. And again, the ancients noticed this, so they started mimicking it by making their own artificial mountains. And that's exactly what pyramids are. Pyramids are scalar wave antennas. They're transceivers. They pick up this energy coming from the sun and from the center of the Earth, and they rebroadcast it outward in a toroidal field around them, and then they create a vortex of scalar waves that go up out of the tip. And it has all kinds of very beneficial uses that way. This is actually a Kirlian photograph of the energy coming off the tip of a pyramid, and you can see it's a double helix. Wonder why our DNA is shaped the way it is. You see evidence of this everywhere you go. This manifestation of this spiraling, vortexing energy coagulating, slowing down and coagulating into our 3D reality. Out here in the lobby, there's actually a picture. It's actually a kind of a picture sculpture of the Colorado River here in Texas and all the tributaries. And if you look at it, it's winding back and forth. It's horseshoeing back and forth, almost bending back onto itself. And the reason is because that water wants to flow in a vortex. It's following the natural flow or the motion of the planets and the solar system and the entire galaxy. The entire galaxy is in motion. Nothing's sitting still. You know, our sun isn't like sitting out here in space doing nothing and all the planets are rotating around it. That's not how it is. The sun is spiraling around through the galaxy and we're spiraling around it. And so that spiraling motion makes the energy and water want to spiral. So because that water is nailed to the ground by gravitation, instead of spiraling, it just wiggles back and forth in these horseshoe patterns. So that's all fine and dandy. That's Ormus, that's scalar energy. So what? What can you do with it, right? It's like, well, this is nice. I'm going to go home and kick the dog and drink a beer, right? Well, there's a lot of cool things you can do with this, but if you don't understand these fundamentals, it'll be like it was for me 30 years ago, thinking this is all a bunch of new age nonsense. One of the applications that I'm a real big fan of is a quantum biofeedback device, as they're known, called the QXCI Skio, or its newer cousin, the Indigo. And this device, basically, it's a combination of computer software and an interface and some straps that you hook up to your ankles and your wrists and your forehead. And it can actually read the scalar energetic signature of the matter in your body and compare it with a database of known values that it has, and then it can tell what's going on within your body. Now, you have to understand that all the elements on the periodic chart, and this is conventional physics, this isn't even anything extravagant, it's known that every element has, in its subatomic structure, it vibrates. And each element vibrates at a different frequency. So, for example, hydrogen vibrates at a certain frequency. Oxygen vibrates at a certain frequency. If you combine two hydrogens and an oxygen atom together, it's going to have an overall frequency, and you can measure that and understand that's water. And so this is how the Skio works. It basically looks at different levels of granularity within the body at the scalar vibrational frequencies of things, and it can identify if you've got heavy metals or toxins or parasites or pathogens or emotional issues with your parents or whatever. It's crazy what this thing can read. It can even detect ghosts in the room, believe it or not. And it's because emotions, human emotion and consciousness is a form of scalar energy. It's really just God consciousness. It's kind of localized. It's flowing through everything. We capture it, we use it, and we create our own little reality with it. But this is how this device is able to do some amazing things. It's not FDA approved as a diagnostic device, but I do use it an awful lot for screening. You can do things, for example, like test supplements, and you can actually use it to figure out what dosages of specific supplements are right for you, or if the supplement's not right for you. So I do that a lot when I'm doing testing of supplements. Other things you can do with this energy, I actually make devices that utilize this energy for different purposes. Years ago, when I was making fermented foods, And I also would make these fermented brews using a product called effective microorganisms. And I started realizing, like, wow, I can do all these other things that haven't been done with fermentation. And one of them is putting the ferment in a scalar energy field. So I started learning about orgonite, and orgonite is a material basically that has some kind of non-conducting resin or substrate, like fiberglass resin or plastic or glass or something. And it has crystals in it. It has metal particles in it. And there are several different effects that occur with that. Basically, crystals themselves, as I mentioned, because they have these monoatomics in them, they put out scalar waves all the time. They're like antennas for it. And if you squeeze on them, they'll put out even more because of the piezoelectric effect. But then also there's something called the Casimir effect. And when you put two plates of metal very close together, like a 1/16 of an inch apart from each other, they'll generate a charge, but they'll also generate scalar waves. And the people that are making orgonite, even Carl Hans Wells, who invented orgonite, and Wilhelm Reich, who really is probably the modern inventor of this technology, they didn't understand the physics of this. That they just were kind of mimicking what they observed. But the Casimir effect will create scalar waves. So when you put particles close together, you're going to get surface area close enough together, you're going to get some of the Casimir effect. So the finer the particles, the more the Casimir effect you're going to get. So I started making these discs to put off scalar fields, and then I would put fermentation buckets on them, and it would radically increase the nutrient levels and the ferment time. It would speed up the ferment time quite a bit. So I developed a large disc, and I put it under 5-gallon buckets to do this. Well, people started wanting to buy them, and so I started selling them to people, and then they started using them for all kinds of crazy stuff I never imagined. They were sleeping with them and putting them in their refrigerators and growing plants with them and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I figured out that there's a lot of other things we can do with this. And so now I make these discs and I sell them. And I was already making a little powered scalar wave device that you can carry with you for protection against jet lag and EMF, and it would also help you get into deep sleep states. And so I started applying all these different things I was learning from making these discs and other things I was learning about, and developed a pyramid that's a powered scalar wave generator that will put out a field and scalar waves, and it'll help you get into deep sleep, and it'll protect against EMF and do all kinds of strange things. And other people have been doing this as well. There are people making orgonite cones and pyramids, and you can actually take little small pyramids or cones just like 6 inches tall, stick them outdoors, and they will actually clear chemtrails out of the sky, and they'll balance the weather if you build them right. You don't have to build a gigantic pyramid. You can just make these little tiny pyramids. Actually, here in the Bastrop area, there's a guy named Dowan Gardner. He goes by the handle of Orgonite Austin because he lives in Austin. He's been making really good orgonite and spreading it around and is doing some really good things to protect this area. That's one of his pyramids down there in the bottom. I wound up developing a powered scalar wave device that'll actually clear a 75-mile radius of nuclear fallout and chemtrails and balance the weather. It'll stop hurricanes. It'll stop severe weather. It'll stop droughts. It'll stop floods. It stops all that stuff. And of course, I got too public with it and started having death threats and stuff. And I had worked with free energy back in the early 90s. And so I've had friends murdered and hurt and things like that. So I know to take these threats seriously. So I don't get too public with it anymore. Now, Dr. Alexander Golod, who has impeccable credentials, he is works for the Russian military, high level in the Russian military. And he, when the Cold War warmed up a little bit or eased off a little bit, he started working with pyramids. Presumably, the government probably wanted him to understand them for warfare purposes. But being a benevolent person, he started studying them for beneficial purposes and discovered all kinds of amazing things. They can make oil wells flow faster and flow better and produce more. They can clean up pollution in the ground and groundwater, including radioactivity. They can clean up radioactivity in the atmosphere and air pollution in the atmosphere. They can stop severe weather. They can even stop earthquakes. These are people sitting inside of his large pyramid outside of Moscow, and it's made completely out of non-conducting materials. With scalar waves, electrically non-conducting materials are best to work with. for creating these kinds of structures. You can do it with metals, but you have to know what you're doing. They act more like waveguides. So anyway, these are people sitting inside and getting healed. They found that people could go inside the pyramid and get healed of major diseases. And these big domes, or these big globes here, those are made of crystal. They discovered also you can charge crystals. You can put crystals in the pyramid, charge them up, and then they can take them out and give them to people, and they will emanate this scalar energy and heal people. Now, there are a lot of really cool benefits from his pyramids, and we'll just get into a few of them. There's so many, I don't have time to list them all, but as I mentioned, neutralizes radioactivity in the atmosphere and in groundwater. It cleans up toxins in the air and in the groundwater. It increases yields of seeds and crops, reduces seismic activity. What it does is it releases the tectonic shifts little by little every day instead of letting them build up into big shifts, and that way you don't have big earthquakes. Now, they noticed a lot of springs popping up all around Golad's pyramid for miles around, and it's because when you understand these ormus elements are in soil, they're actually made by microbes eating rocks in the soil, but they're trapped in the soil, so they can't levitate. They're anti-gravitational. That's one of their properties, and they want to levitate up, but they can't. The soil holds them down. So what happens is rainwater will wash through the soil and wash them down into aquifers, and when they've accumulated enough, the anti-gravitational properties will levitate the water up to the surface. That's how spring water gets to the surface most of the time. It's usually not hydrostatic pressure. It's the ormus levitating it up to the surface. That's how you have springs at the top of 13,000 foot high mountains. You know, how does water get up to the top of a 13,000 foot high mountain? How does water get up to the top of a 400 foot tall tree? You know, the redwoods in California, how does that water get up there? If you know anything about physics, you can't pump water, or you can't suck water up that high. The trees do a combination of bubbling CO2 that they absorb in their veins, in their capillaries, and bubbling the water up. That also is the ormus elements levitating it up to the plant. Now, the cool benefit of Golad's pyramid, and this gives me hope for humanity, is that there were some flowers they noticed growing out in the fields around his pyramid. If you recall in that picture, there were these big fields around this big pyramid. And they noticed some flowers no one had ever seen before. So they called a botanist in to have them identified, and they discovered they've been extinct on Earth for 11 million years. And so Golod theorized that these pyramids, this pyramid energy, can capture the patterns of things from other times and places and bring them into our present. And some people call it the Akashic Records. He calls it the quantum field, I believe. But these things can bring, if these things can bring extinct species back onto the planet, think about all the things we've wiped off the planet that we could bring back. Now, there are people making and selling orgonite all over the place, and I'll tell you the truth, most of it, probably 95% of it, is not that well built. Some of it's just outright junk that doesn't work. But there are some people that have, you know, are making good stuff. This was a pyramid I saw on eBay that I thought was pretty cool, and it's bound to work quite well the way it's constructed. And this is one of those cases where you can they're using metals in the construction, and they know what they're doing. And this thing probably really does an amazing job of keeping chemtrails out of the sky and balancing the weather, and probably other things, improving plant growth in the area. I noticed when I put my device outside in my yard, I've got about 5 acres. I'm in Florida where we've got a lot of molds on everything, you know, plants and all kinds of stuff. And I noticed after a few months of putting it out that the molds went away, which I found quite interesting. But at any rate, basically at the corners of this pyramid at the bottom, you've got this little piece of orgonite at each corner that generates these scalar waves, sends them up through the tubes because these waves are vortexing through the tubes. Then it goes up and hits the orgonite at the top, and then it comes out and vortexes into a big, strong vortex. Now, the thing of it is, human beings can do this. Our biology can do this ourselves. You can actually do this yourself. You can go out into your yard and meditate and envision creating a vortex of energy and clearing the chemtrails or changing the weather. You can actually, I was out the other day with a gardener, and we were making clouds dissolve just by directing our consciousness at it. It's because we are scalar wave transceivers. We take this energy and we can broadcast it. This is why native peoples throughout the world, throughout history, have gotten together in circles and done ceremony. You know, they may not know all the physics. They just know, for example, a rain dance or a rain ceremony. You get into a circle and you get a bunch of human beings generating scalar vortexes, and then that will combine to create one big vortex that goes up into the atmosphere, and it acts like a vacuum cleaner. It actually changes the ionization of the atmosphere. It's like an upside down tornado of this subtle energy, and it goes up, and if you've got a big enough group, you create this vortex where the apex of it is out in space. And so it's sitting there vortexing with the big end of the vortex down toward the ground, and the point out in space acts like a vacuum cleaner, pulls the pollution out, balances the ionization atmosphere, and then you get whatever you need in terms of weather. If you need rain, if there's been a drought, you get rain, but you get enough, you don't get too much. If it's been flooding and raining too much or strong winds or whatever, it just goes away. And I've seen this over and over and over again. So we don't have to have these technologies outside of ourselves. They just make it more convenient, because who's got the time to sit out in the yard and meditate all day, especially with all the spraying that's going on? Now, there's some really cool supplements. This is starting to get into the very cutting edge supplement companies like Ancient Tech, Vernon Ross Company. He's been doing this for eons. I mean, Vernon knew this stuff probably back in 1950, before anybody else did, because his Ormus products are some of the first I came across, and they're actually some of the very, very few that I like and recommend. But this one is a really interesting iodine supplement from Dr. Gabriel Cousins at the Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center in Arizona. And it is monoatomic iodine, but he didn't just stop with that. They actually use a scalar device to program it with the anti-frequencies of all known radioactive elements. So this iodine, because it's superconducting, not only when you ingest it will it give you iodine and help your thyroid and help your body, but also it emanates the anti-frequencies, scalar frequencies of radiation, and it will actually neutralize radioactivity in the body. Now, they can't claim that, and I'm not claiming that. I'm just telling you this is what my experience has been in using this stuff. Scalar energy, because it creates and alters matter, it can do all kinds of interesting things, and it can neutralize radioactivity. That device I told you about called the SCIO and the indigo, those devices can neutralize radioactivity in the body. And I know that firsthand because a little over a year ago, I got radiation poisoning for the first time. I've had it 3 times now. Nobody's going to, I wouldn't volunteer for radiation poisoning. So spirit kind of sends me that way, and then I have to deal with it and figure it out. And then I share it with people. So I got radiation poisoning the first time, and it was pretty bad. And I had to figure out really quick what to do. And fortunately, I was already doing a lot of it. I didn't even know, because I was testing some new supplements, and it turns out those supplements pulled it out of my body. But in the process, I found out that the SCIO and the indigo, I actually got hooked up to one, and in 3 hours, it neutralized the radioactivity in my body, which is pretty amazing. And then I found out about this. 3 days later, I'm talking to Gabriel Cousins, and this is kind of how my life works. I swear, I feel like Forrest Gump sometimes, because it's like when you're living in line with the way nature is and works, it's a lot easier and things fall in your lap. And so I kind of have gotten accustomed to that. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't go volunteer for radiation poisoning, but when that happens, it's like the answers come. And so this was one of them. 3 days later, I'm talking to him on the phone, and he says, "Oh yeah, we've got this 2 amazing supplements that will pull this stuff out of the body. This is one of them." The other one is a really, really cool water. It's actually an Ormus water. This is just water with monoatomic something in it. I don't know exactly because it's proprietary and they won't tell me, but it's some kind of Ormus water that has been programmed with the anti-frequencies of all known radioactive elements, and it does the same thing. You take like 12 drops a day of this stuff, and it will remove radiation from the body. It's quite amazing. And again, I know this firsthand because I used this stuff and it worked for me, and I've used it on other people and tested them. The SCIO and indigo, by the way, will test for radioactivity in the body. Although if you go to a practitioner and ask for that, I mean, they're going to throw all kinds of disclaimers at you because that's not a diagnostic device. Now, our good buddy, our 10-4 good buddy, Vernon Roth, as I mentioned, he's got some really amazing products, and I was telling him a little while ago. I met Vernon in 2005 at the Ormus conference in Enoda, Georgia. And I was actually disappointed in the conference, and I was leaving, and I came in to say goodbye to a friend of mine, And as I'm sitting there, Vernon is up on stage talking. And as I'm talking, saying goodbye, I'm hearing what he's saying. I was like, holy crap, who is this guy? He's saying the same stuff I've been saying for years. Oh, Vernon Roth. And so I listened, and it's like, man, this guy is speaking my language. So when he got done talking, I came down and we talked a bit. Well, I had already gone to his booth and bought some of his Spark of Life water. And, you know, especially back then, I didn't read labels. I just, you know, do whatever. So I bought a couple of his bottles. I threw it in my bag. And then later that night, I went back to my campsite because I was camping and I didn't have any lights. So I sat and had dinner in the dark. And I figured, well, I'll pull out some of that Ormus water and drink it for, you know, dinner. So it was a quart bottle of the Ormus water. So I drank the whole quart. Well, first thing to happen when I opened the bottle up and I brought it to my lips, when it got about an inch away, this spark came shooting out of the bottle and arced across like an inch from the bottle and zapped the heck out of my lip. So, and it was so bright, it lit up the whole campsite. It was hilarious. I was like, oh my God, I know this stuff is good. So then I ate my sandwich and I drank the whole bottle. And then, you know, like 11 o'clock at night, I go to bed and I was wide awake, totally wide awake. Like I started seeing patterns in the universe I'd never seen before. I was starting to like solve all the problems in the universe. And I stayed up all night. I wasn't tired at all. I went to the conference the next day. I was there all day long, felt great. Wasn't tired at all. So I stayed like 48 hours, maybe more straight after drinking this bottle. So I'm at the conference the next day and I said to Vernon, I said, man, what the hell is this water? And I told him what I did. He's like, oh my God, you're only supposed to take like what, 2 tablespoons or something. So I learned, but I don't know what he's got some kind of magical machine and God knows what else he's doing. But he's got some really amazing stuff. I've done cleanses with his Ormus Gold and Platinum and other things, and it's really amazing. And he was telling me just a little while ago, you can also feed the gold to sprouts and to plants. So I'm going to play with that next. I already do feed Ormus to my plants and my sprouts. I grow a lot of my own food, and I'm going to show you guys some of that. But Ancient Tech has some of the very few Ormus supplements that I recommend. And ancienttech.com. Unabashed plug for Vernon, because I don't mind plugging people's stuff. If it works, I don't plug stuff that doesn't work. People that know me know that. Now, the cool thing is you can create your own too. And this is what I teach people. One of the ways you can create Ormus is by vortexing water with mineral water in scalar fields and magnetic fields. And if you think about it, when water is flowing over stream and riverbeds, it's flowing over rocks and it's creating vortexes and it's getting imbued with minerals. But the rocks are made of crystals and they're sitting out in the sun and they're absorbing the scalar energy coming from the sun and from the center of the earth all day, all night, 24/7, and imparting those frequencies into the rocks, which they emanate outwards. And then they're oscillators, so they're changing the frequency to these natural frequencies. And then the water's flowing over it. Well, water is a homeopathic solution. It's a liquid crystal. And the molecules of the water will cluster together into patterns depending on what it's been exposed to, material-wise and also energetically. So natural water that's clean, it's been flowing over these rocks, it's picking up these scalar frequencies. Very often the rocks are magnetic, so it's getting magnetically charged, which changes the water clustering and makes it very, very beneficial for living organisms. So you can do the same thing. You can actually go online, just Google magnetic blender, and you can see how to buy some magnets, stick them on, slap them on your blender with a little Velcro or elastic, and you can make a vortex machine, which you can put mineral water or anything else into with food in it, vortex it, and it will increase the Ormus. It'll liberate the Ormus elements in the food or water. And so I do this all the time. I'll vortex water with sea minerals in it, feed it to my plants, feed it to my ferments, and you get crazy growth. If you don't want to mess with that, you can buy one. There's actually a device called a water vitalizer, and the people that make this, they don't even know how it works. I talked to the inventor of it, and I was talking to him about Ormus and this energy, and he had no clue. All he knows is, I think he was imitating Victor Schauberger's work, and he just knows it works. He doesn't really understand the physics of it. But basically what it does, the base creates a very strong magnetic field, and then it vortexes the water. And so if it's got minerals in there, it will break the minerals down into angstrom and monoatomic particles, and you wind up with Ormus water. And it's very, and it also oxygenates the water at a chemical level. So you get very, very regenerative water. That's all I drink these days. There's also a really cool product called Accelerated Silver from folks in California, acceleratedhealthproducts.com. This is unlike any colloidal or angstrom or ionic silver products out there. And there are some good ones. For those of you that are, there's a lot of confusion about silver products. People argue back and forth on the internet about, no, colloidal's better, no, ionic's better, no, this nano's better. Blah, blah, blah. People are mislabeling these silver solutions. So you can't really pay attention to what they're calling it. You have to look at what the particle sizes are. Do they have angstrom particles? Do they have monoatomic particles? This stuff is a hydrosol, and it has a high degree of monoatomic silver in it. And it's absolutely amazing for killing pathogens in the body. I always travel this. I always travel with a first aid kit of things that will kill bugs and pathogens and pull toxins out of the body in case I encounter, biowarfare bugs or radiation. Like on planes, the levels of radioactivity up in airplanes is very high. Dr. Patrick Flanagan, for those of you that know him from Phi Sciences or Phi Sciences, he's got like a $20,000 Geiger counter. He's been traveling around the world measuring radioactivity around the world. He said it's everywhere. It's even in the southern hemisphere, and it's very, very high in the upper atmosphere where planes fly. And so if you're flying, I highly recommend using these products to pull the radiation out of your body. Take them before you go, take them while you're flying, and take them when you're done for a period of time to keep this stuff out of your body. But this is really, really good stuff. I'll take a swig of it. If I travel somewhere and I start feeling a sore throat or something coming on, I'll just take a swig of this stuff. They have like, I don't know, a teaspoon or a tablespoon or whatever. I just kick it back. 5 minutes later, sore throat gone, and I just move on. Now, for radioactive particles that are what are called the transuranic elements, the ones from uranium on up on the periodic chart, their particle sizes are too large for zeolites to pull out. We haven't gotten to zeolites yet, I don't think. I should have put the zeolite slide before this. But anyway, so these larger radioactive elements, you can get them out of the gut by using clays. And there's bentonite clay, which is available in most health food stores. There's different kinds of clay. Sacred clay is one of my favorites because it's very high in Ormus and it pulls these things out. So you take a tablespoon or two in water, you drink it, you do this, and it'll help get the stuff and other toxins and pathogens out of the gut too. Now, our good friend Mary Jane actually is very high in Ormus. And you can actually buy marijuana legally in all 50 states now. But they don't call it marijuana anymore because that's politically very incorrect. It's even getting a little bit incorrect to call it hemp anymore because the FDA is really cracking down on hemp producers, even though it's completely legal to produce and sell the hemp that they're selling. It has almost no THC in it whatsoever. It's like the legal limit, I think, is 0.03% THC, which is what gets you high in marijuana. So they've developed strains of marijuana now that have 0.02% THC in it, which is barely detectable. It doesn't get you high, and it's completely legal in all 50 states now. So you can buy this stuff. My favorites are hemppaste.com and Charlotte's Web Botanicals, cwbotanicals.com, hemp oil and hemp paste. The hemp paste and oil are very different. The hemp paste is very strong. Like for me, I use it actually for getting really good sleep. Now, I already get good sleep normally, but if I'm on the road or doing something unusual, I'll bring hemp paste with me because I can take it 2 hours before bed and man, I'm out. And then the next day I'm like, Mr. Mellow, totally mellow, dude. It really is. It's a great thing. Now, I don't know about you guys, but back when I was young, I was a volumetric drinker, and I had a friend from 7th grade on who his sister married a smuggler. So I had access to all the drugs and pot and stuff I wanted. So I did a lot of drugs when I was young. I did inhale quite a lot. And I can tell you, it will mellow you out, but it's really cool to especially if you're a type A personality. I'm not saying I am, but you know, you take some of this stuff, you don't get high, but you get mellow. And you don't get like dysfunctionally mellow to where you just don't feel like going to work today, dude. But it just chills you out. It gives you a smoothness, a calmness. It relaxes you. It's really nice. So this stuff is great, and you can do things with it. You can vortex it in water and get some interesting effects. Now, this is one that years ago I heard about, and when I heard the descriptions of it, I was like, what the heck is this? And we don't have time for the full story, but long story short, Miracle 2 soap and Miracle 2 neutralizer and all these Miracle 2 products, they came out, when it originally came out, the developer of it said that it used eloptic energy, which is a phrase from, I believe, a man named Hieronymus, if I remember correctly. It's just another name for scalar energy, or this subtle energy, this etheric energy. I like etheric energy better, that Vern's calling it, because it's scalar. But anyway, so this stuff has been zapped with scalar energy, with etheric energy, and then it emanates it, and it has a lot of weird properties. The thing I like about it, it's non-toxic, but also the thing I really like about it is that when you use it, it doesn't leave a bathtub scum. So I only have to clean my bathtub like once a month. Now, here's a really, really cool one that people have a hard time believing sometimes. When you feed these Ormus elements to plants, to GMO plants, it will revert their DNA back to heirloom. And the reason is because genetic modification suppresses the superconductivity and the expression of the DNA. But if you feed it Ormus elements, it will unwind and it will regain its original pattern. And the reason is because the genetic blueprint is not in the DNA. The DNA is the carrier of the genetic blueprint. It's like the antenna that picks up the blueprint. The blueprint is in consciousness itself, and it cannot be destroyed. So whether it's a plant or a microbe or a human being, if you feed them Ormus elements, it will heal DNA damage and it will unwind GMO damage and revert it back. And I've seen this done with 2 different products. There used to be a product online called Garden Shot, and now those people disappeared, not surprisingly. I don't know what happened to them. But they had a product. Actually, they were at the Ormus conference that Vern and I were at, and they showed me field trials that they did with all these pictures of GMO crops that had reverted back to heirloom. It was mind-blowing. I mean, like, the plant would look completely different. You know, the coloration and all kinds of stuff would be completely different. And the other company that does it, I can't tell you specifically who they are or what their product is. I'll just tell you this, that their product is in this presentation. So you take their product and you mix it with water, you put it on soil, and it breaks the soil down into angstrom and monoatomic particles, and you get this crazy plant growth. And they discovered the same thing, that GMOs, when you feed them this stuff, would revert back to the heirloom. Those people, the reason I can't say anything about them is because they've had 2 attempts on their life. They went to big agriculture and said, hey, look at this great product we've got. Okay, let's kill you. The chemical industry does not want people to know about this, and surely Monsanto doesn't want that. By the way, one big secret Monsanto doesn't want people to know is that even if you don't feed these things Ormus elements, over multiple generations, they will revert back to their original patterns because of the pattern being in the consciousness. You know, if you take GMO crops and you graft them and regrow them several, after 5, 6, 7 generations, they will revert back to their original. There was a study done, I don't remember who, I think Vern actually knows, where there was a study done with fruit flies where they fed them, well, actually they didn't feed them, they just reproduced these blind fruit flies that have been genetically modified to be blind, and after 7 generations, they regain their sight. Now, another way you can make this stuff, as I said, vortexing in a blender-like device, but if you want to do it for agriculture, you can get a vortex brewer, or you can build a vortex brewer, which is just a big vortexing device for agriculture. And you put water in there, you can put microbes in there, and then you put rock powders in there. And what kind of rock powders do you want to use? What kind of rocks do you want to use? You want to use volcanic rocks. A volcanic rock is high in Ormus. So if you're feeding plants or whatever you're doing, work with these volcanic rock powders. If you want to know more about rock powders, there's a wonderful book called The Enlivened Rock Powders by Harvey Lyle. And also, Vern was discussing this earlier, also Philip Callahan, books by Philip Callahan, Paramagnetism and others. What they're calling paramagnetism, I'm calling scalar energy, but basically it's the same thing. You read those books, you'll understand a lot more about how to apply this to agriculture. Now, I'm lazy. I've done this. I've done all these experiments. I've made these things. I've, done last 30 years, I've done all kinds of experiments, but I'm lazy. So there's some very nice people in California who came out with a product called Micro Minerals, and it is an agricultural product for high in ormus. Actually, it's all it is ormus. It's ormus water. They take seawater and they vortex it through very, very strong magnetic fields. And it creates an incredible ormus product that you can buy off the shelf very affordably. I think a pint is like $16, and you use like a tablespoon per gallon of water. This is one of the things that I use on my sprouts. I'm going to start playing with the ancient tech stuff now that I've talked to Vern, but this is one of the things I use right now. And you just buy it, you put it in water, you spray it. If you're growing sprouts in trays, you foliar feed them, you just spray it on the plants. If you're growing outdoors, you can also feed the soil with this stuff. You get crazy growth and crazy nutrient levels. And just to give you a little story about this, Dr. Joseph Mercola, for those of you that have heard of him, he's kind of like the Dr. Oz of natural health. He's a friend and a neighbor of mine. And when I first met him, I was talking to him, and I was at his house, and he was showing me some sprouting. He had gotten all excited about sprouting because he went to Hippocrates Institute, came back all jazzed about sprouting. So he's sprouting, and he wasn't getting very good results. So just off the cuff, I said, well, just do these 4 things, blah, 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 blah. And he did it. And being Joe Mercola, he wasn't happy, I guess, with just growing good sprouts. He's like, he calls me up on the phone. What the heck is this? He got insane growth on his sprouts. But being Joe Mercola, he wasn't happy leaving it at that. He sent it off to a lab and had it analyzed. And the mineral levels and the nutrient levels were off the charts. And I said, I've been trying to tell you, scalar energy, ormus. He finally got it. Then he got super jazzed. He's calling me up for hours on the phone. Oh my God, I'm so excited about this. I've never been so excited about anything, blah, blah, blah. So this is an easy way. And he actually found this one for me. He went out, because that's what he does, man. He's a researcher extraordinaire. So he found this one for me. Now, another thing I do, again, because I'm lazy and I'm also very busy, is I do grow a lot of food in my yard. I'm on 5 acres. I'm very fortunate, and I have a lot of room to grow food. I also grow sprouts in trays, and I also use tower gardens. And these tower gardens, a company called Juice Plus sells them. They're about $450 for the taller ones. But I can tell you with one of these, particularly now the nutrients that they sell with these, they are high in ormus elements, and they grow very nutrient-dense food on their own. So that alone is great. But you can also throw in the micro minerals or ancient tech stuff or something like that and radically jack up the nutrient levels even more. The nice thing about these is they're completely automated. We get organic. We used to grow our own seedlings, but now we get seedlings from an organic grower, and we stick them in there. And one of these towers will grow enough food for one person to eat 2 gigantic salads every day for 6 months for less than $100. So when people tell me that, oh, I can't afford organic food, bullshit. Get one of these. Now, as I mentioned, rock powders. Here's some of my favorites. Azomite. You can get this all over the country. You can go to their website. You can find out who the suppliers are in your area. Jersey green sand, which interestingly enough doesn't come from Jersey. It comes from Texas. I think it used to come from Jersey, but at any rate, Jersey green sand is a really good one. I think it's also known as rhyolite. Redmond minerals. They've got minerals for livestock that you can use to feed your plants. All volcanic, very high in ormus. You can also vortex these. I do all kinds of stuff with these. I don't just feed them to plants. I don't do just what they tell me to do with them. I start thinking like, man, what kind of diabolical stuff can I do with this? So you can vortex them in your vitalizer. I put azomite and all kinds of rock powders and my supplements and everything else in my blender, in my vitalizer every day. I vortex it for 27 minutes and I drink it. And that's a rush. Now this product, Microblast, was originally developed for agriculture, but they had a bad experience with agriculture, so they started selling it as a parasite cleanse. And it's phenomenal for that. It's really weird stuff. It's like 6 simple herbs, like 2 ferns, chocolate, peppermint, a couple others. Nothing exotic. It must be real high in ormus. There's some kind of process they put this through. It's really weird. It's just a soap. It tastes like that soap, like in elementary school, that old nasty soap, in the bathrooms. It tastes like that, smells. That old brown soap. I mean, but it's amazing. You can, put it in capsules and swallow it, and it will kill parasites and pathogens in the body extremely well. It actually isolates them by their protein structure and breaks just the pathogens down. It doesn't harm beneficial organisms in the body. But you can take like a tablespoon of this, put it in a gallon of water, and feed your crops with it and see what happens. There's another one called BioWash that's similar, a little different, not quite the same, but you can get amazing results with that on crops. Now, another cool thing you can do is you can make your own medicines and you can neutralize nuclear fallout. That's what I'm getting ready to show you. With what? With this stuff. But first, that water, that ormus water that I run through in a vitalizer, I got the idea to feed it to some kombucha and water kefir. And oh my God, the water kefir grains, normally water kefir grains, the actual culture, they look like little jelly balls about the size of a green pea. And, you got a ton of them in a batch. And they take about 10 days to 14 days. You mix sugar and water and these grains together, and they ferment. It's kind of like beer or wine. But you get this fizzy soda that is a really good probiotic. And normally it takes about 10 to 14 days to make it. But when I took my Vortex water, I put some concentrates, liquid sea minerals into this water, Vortex it for like 27 minutes, then poured it into my culture. And in like 4 days, it was done. But the interesting thing was the grains, which are normally the size of a pea, were like the size of a quarter. I mean, they were gigantic. So this is what happens. What these ormus elements do is they bring energy into the process. Photosynthesis and fermentation are interdimensional processes. They're not just chemistry. And this is what most scientists don't get. It's not just chemistry. It's interdimensional physics. So to neutralize radioactivity, there is a culture called effective microorganisms. I sell it on my website. It's like $24 a quart. And here's the cool thing. You can make gallons and gallons and gallons of it yourself. All you do is take a quart of this stuff, mix it with a quart of blackstrap molasses, organic blackstrap molasses, and 5 gallons of water. You keep it around 95 degrees for 3 weeks, and in 3 weeks, you'll have 5 gallons of it. Now, the cool thing is it has tons and tons of different uses. You can use it as a probiotic supplement. You can actually drink this stuff, so you can guzzle all the probiotics you want all day long. And it only takes like a couple tablespoons a day, I mean, it's ridiculous. So you've got like, a lifetime supply in one batch. That's just one use for it. You can also use it, of course, with animals. You can use it as a deodorizer. These microbes eat toxins and break them down into non-toxic elements. You can use it as a deodorizer, like a carpet cleaner, deodorizer, window cleaner, counter cleaner. You can use it to break down compost faster, a compost accelerator. You can use it to remove odors in animal stalls and on farms, and it will break down their manure faster. It also disinfects. You can use it to remediate polluted water. And you can use it to neutralize radioactive fallout. Now, you can get the instructions on how to make this stuff on my website at downloads.freshandalive.com. So you can get this presentation and other presentations I've done and other information and the instructions on how to make this on that downloads page. And that downloads page is not available through the menu system on the website. If you don't know that URL, you won't be able to find it. Now, this is proof that this stuff will neutralize radioactivity. There is actually this video on YouTube, and it's on a special page on my website, radiationlinks.freshandalive.com. A farmer in Fukushima City, Japan. Everybody around him, their crops, their soil is all radioactive. They can't sell it. He used EM, spraying it on his soil, spraying it on his crops. 0 measurable radioactivity, 0. And this is showing, this is showing the testing and stuff that they did. So this is what we have the power to do. All this stuff, all the solutions to these problems that we have are inexpensive, and they're not necessarily high tech. You know, this stuff's been around for eons. Consciousness can alter matter. If consciousness can alter matter, what can't we do? We've been so conditioned and programmed yourself. That's what, you know, when I heard Fukushima, when I heard about the Fukushima disaster, the first thing I thought was, I wonder if the United States used a scalar weapon to create the earthquake. So I Googled it, and sure enough, one of the first things that came up was the Minister of Finance of Japan being interviewed by the editor of Forbes China. And this is the guy who reports directly to the Prime Minister of Japan, saying on record, on video, that the United States had used a scalar weapon, not just to create the Fukushima earthquake, but 2 other earthquakes previous to that on the west coast of Japan, in order to blackmail Japan into economic policies against China, because the United States knows that China and Russia and the BRICS alliance of countries is working to create an alternative currency for world trade. That's known as the world's reserve currency. It's what countries used to do business with. Right now, the US dollar is the world's reserve currency, so everybody's got to trade their assets for dollars to buy stuff. But we don't. We want oil, we just print up monopoly money and go buy oil. So the US seriously doesn't want that to end. But these countries are working to end that. So the Fukushima, according to this interview with the Minister of Finance, this was an attempt by the United States to keep the dollar from losing its reserve currency status. The first 2 times that they were hit with earthquakes, they wouldn't go along with the plan. But the 3rd time with Fukushima, they relented and went ahead. So that, you know, when you hear these kinds of things, it makes a hell of a lot more sense than the nonsense we're told through the mainstream media. Now, I use these things, as I mentioned, growing. I grow outdoors with all these. I have my scalar wave devices where I'm growing food. I've got them outdoors and indoors, wherever I'm growing. I've got scalar wave generators. I've got Ormus elements using on all this stuff. I get crazy nutrient-dense food. I'm so used to eating this stuff. I hate eating out when going anywhere else. It's like when I travel, food doesn't taste like food to me. It's like cardboard. When you're used to eating food that has real nutrients in it and all the chemicals in it that it's supposed to have in it and the energy, it's like, man, you get spoiled. It's like going to Whole Foods. I call it Whole Frauds because it's not really food. It's, there are organic farms that are learning about this stuff, and certainly biodynamics know about this stuff. But, even organic food is no assurance that you're going to get nutrient-dense food. It's not even an assurance that you're going to get stuff that's not radioactive. So you need to know about these things. But at any rate, you can grow tons of food. Even if you're in the middle of Manhattan on a high-rise, you can grow tons of food right next to a window. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much. And I will see you all later.
Thank you very much, Ken Rolla. Well, I definitely think you are very in tune with that quantum field you mentioned. If I could just take 1 second to give a presentation called 3 existing technologies that would absolutely revolutionize the world. And the very first one that I speak about is the proper and systematic application of effective microbes into health, agriculture, and industry. So absolutely, I think this is on key. And the other deal, an affirmation about that, the idea of the Fukushima.
All right, so we've stopped that one for the time being. We're going to be doing a whole lot today. Actually, it is going to be a marathon. And up next, I'll show right now, quickly, before we totally move on and start playing it, but just to show what's up, the Feces 113 Fernando Vasa. So that's the free energy. Oh goodness, something investigation group, or it's a pretty good acronym, but it is absolutely awesome. Goes deep into sacred geometry, as well as alchemy and free energy and all sorts of really very interesting topics. So before we get into that, we are going to go over a bit more alchemy while we are all here. And once again, color coding being every time that I'm changing the subject up and a different segment in these multi-hour streams. We're now just over 2 hours in, 50 people watching. I bet you it's a whole lot more because I really do get shadow band out there. Yeah, we're going to be doing some experiments with this, the monoatomic aluminum that is in the big jar on the far left. The two blue coils there, the double magrav coils behind Bert, we're going to be plugging them in to do more electrolysis experiments with making hydrogen. We're going to actually get a whole bunch of coils all plugged in at once, try to maximize the hydrogen. And not just that, we're going to be outside as it is a beautiful day, and it's a beautiful 3rd of July summer day. So we're going to be doing agricultural alchemy as well. And all of that purple, gold, silver, gold, or silver, purple, silver, and whatnot, the Ormus, we are going to be doing those live Ormus growing experiments for everybody live on air and keeping it going. So yeah, and after, so there's going to be this one video coming up, the latest free energy think group, FESIG group, their 113th monthly think tank, and then after that, I'm going to play another global breakthrough energy movement presentation by Moray B. King, absolute genius and a huge inspiration and advanced research in this nanotechnology that is hydrogen fuel, plasmids, Ormus, monoatomics, and cavitation in particular. And that episode. Yeah, I'm gonna make some more. Actually, today I will do a live monoatomic bismuth as well as setting up more of the silver. We're gonna be doing it all today and keeping it going. So before we get to that, let's show a few more gems from the BurnEye Alchemy Labs archives of, well, it's plasma nanotechnology and pure alchemy. And from my past experiments is almost a decade ago. This is my first lab again here. Let's go through some of the pictures. It's opening up. Here we go. Boom, there she be. Is it? Yep, here we are. All right, so on this one, this was the anode cell of a triple solenoid coil here, and the blue oxidized and then the black nano coating on the outside. But this is when it reached homeostasis, and these nanotubes that built off of it actually connected down to the ground. This you can see where it's broken off and whatnot, and then bleeding the blue ormus out of the holes that it was broken on, as well as the orange yellow where it was broken on, and that while connected, it's actually created this entire outer casing of self-organized nanostructures, this black finite nano coating, and then tubular systems that grow and ground out and build its little universe. Here we go. There's another picture. As you can see, more of the yellow what they call the sulfuric state coming out of it, bleeding out. More of it bleeding out now as it's starting to dry, as well as bubbling out some of the remaining hydrogen from the reaction. And then it continues to dry and go through the solidification. Like you can see the nanotube that grew along the entire outer shell of it, encasing. Here's an anode that completely eroded through, and then after it was dried. One of the coils going through. So, yeah, so this one, you can see the bubbles are actually sticking to the entire Magrav coil. They're not coming up or off of it. They're actually coating the triple solenoid copper coil anode that is in the blue diatomic oxidized copper coming off of it. You can see it bleeding up here and up here and up here, a couple tubes of it, and then all the rest, the shell of either hydrogen or oxygen or HHO, whatever it is, and that I've been able to create this several times on it, and just stuck, right? Not bubbling up at all. You can see the GANs, the ormus bubbling up, and a little bit, I guess, of the little atomic hydrogens coming up, but none of the big ones, all stuck on it. Here you can see some of the fields in the different layers. Again, the fields forming. Always vortex, different fields that form on it. Here again we have the green, the red going to the green to the blue, the different oxidization layers. Still have this today, and I will show it off and what it has turned into, and you will be absolutely astounded. Sealed for 9 years. Here's the atomic hydrogen bubbling up, and what it looks like being captured off the cathode side there. Anode, of course, eroding away. Here in this massive giant stalactite of a self-organized structure, this anode was about this big, and then it grew all of this, connecting and grounding itself out. And over the next month, it then encased itself in that same black outer shell and encasing. This is a double Magrav coil as the cathode. You can see all the hydrogen coming up off of it, and it's black encasing nano coating of the copper as well. And constantly so much bubbles. Once the stalactite anode hit the bottom, the entire water became electrolyte, the salt water. All of it started bubbling massively, like throughout, not just off of the cathode or the anode anymore. Here's my first making monoatomic gold and copper combination. Again, gold. I thought it was zinc, but in fact it was iron. Burn Cron, my clothing line. Gonna be going through, actually even today we might go through some Burn Cron clothing. Oh, my lucky Seek horse, still have that with me. We'll show off Horsey on camera again today too. Yeah, and right above that here you can see this is my silk screening oven in storage currently. Sadly, I lost this table. Asshole old landlords. Tito. This is Tito. As you can see, Tito looks almost identical to my current dog, T2. T2 will come on screen at some point throughout today's mega stream, no doubt. And you can see why T2, Tito 2, is named after Tito 1. Tito was such a good dog, and so is T2, the second version, or the second incarnation. So here we have the monoatomic straight just pouring out, just flowing down, and plasma formations and self-organizations of different layers. Each one of these cloud clusters is in a different exclusion zone. They're all about an inch, like 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, like separated from each other. Like you can see the zinc or copper, actually, I think this is actually a copper plate at this time, is about 2 inches down into the water. So it's about a foot deep, this tub, and that this is about 3 inches of the copper coil eroding down into the pure whites, and then also the blue and orange clusters all forming at different layers of exclusion zones in the monatomic. Oh, we have a video. What are we going to watch? See, these are 9 years old, so I have no idea what's to come right now. Oh, it's just a JPEG. Never mind. Or was there a video? Here we go. Yes, this is the video. Here we go. Just let it play a little bit. I've also decided that, for instance, this giant mofo right here full of aluminum, I'm going to fully rinse them and dry them out, and then combine like some zinc, some aluminum, some copper, and take a couple of the microwaves that I have in my the extra microwaves outside in the work tent there, with the massive extension cords somewhere, and film them and see standing at a very safe distance, because I don't want nuclear radiation. Who knows, maybe explosion, what sort of plasma thing, or what the heck will happen. But supposedly when you microwave a bunch of different metal monoatomics together, they create plasma in the microwave, and then they create back into solids, but that it's actually the atoms fused together, the metals fused together. So then you have to add the atomic masses of the different elements that you're combining, and instead of it being an alloy of the different metals that comes out, instead it comes into as a new higher, much higher, heavier fused element, supposedly. So this is something I'm going to test out hopefully this summer if we get enough funding, and Of course, to keep this stream going, all donations are desperately needed and appreciated. And we're going to be doing more live alchemy for you while playing alchemy of the past. And look at it. It is alive. Watch this stuff grow, and like, it's just so fascinating. Playing that decent, half decent, way overplayed Streamyard rock music in the background. Isn't it? And this is 9 years old, maybe 8 years old. Woo woo! I'm just kidding. Not singing today. Well, maybe later. So you can see the different self-organization happening, and although this is actually a very decent recording from a pretty decent digital camera of the time, to actually capture the different bandwidths and arms and formations, like the fields of it, it does not actually portray the true depth of the monoatomics within the saltwater solution. Bless your soul, HVAC Alex. Thank you so much. It is appreciated and needed, and bless your soul. Everybody that has supported today, FGraph monthly membership. HVAC Alex with 20, much greatly appreciate. And we also, oh my, that is all today. All right. We continue on, and I'll let it play for like another minute or so. It's alive, isn't it? Like, it's truly alive. Oh, now I'm blocking it while it's alive. It's alive. And that's what I believe all the ancient alchemists meant when they wrote the metal is alive. It was live with current, or with the reaction of the transmutation. Oh, brother Luke Nakahara, bless your soul. Shalom 2222. Appreciate it. Doubled up HVAC Alex. Thank you both. Helping out. It all adds up at the beginning of each month. and this month it did not add up to very much. So I am rather hurting for certain, but that's what we're getting through these old pictures and files and doing the real science, the real alchemy here, and the plasma research, this Ormus monoatomics. And coming up next, for all of you beautiful souls and awesome beings joining us today, tomorrow, whenever you are, or wherever it is, whenever it is, wherever you are, when you do watch this. Today is currently July 3rd, 7:45 a.m. Mountain Time from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And yeah, we've got all sorts of epic pictures as well as live agricultural alchemy coming up. We've got coming up next, though, FESIG 113th Free Energy Work Group, Fernando Vasa, Technology of the Ancients. And showing off all the old buckets, right? So my ex of the time, she literally thought I was insane. She's like, Bernie, you're freaking staring into buckets of rust. What the fuck is wrong with you? And I was like, you just don't get it. You just don't get it, girl. But that's why things change. There you can see with the classic turkey baster, me harvesting the pure monoatomics, the plasma from the reactions. And that is how it was done and how it is done. I will try to do London McLovin, either the next one or the one after, depending. There you saw me collecting the white and putting it in with the diatomic blue. Depending on, I guess this is going to be 6 hours or so I got going. I'm going to open up to a panel in about 2 or 3 hours. London McLovin, you'd be more than welcome to hop on. I can send you the invite when I do open up the panel, and we can multi-stream. You can go live on your channels as well as we keep this bad boy going. All right, so done that one. Coming up. Oh, there's Tito. That was the original. And if anyone wants to send me some wire, I desperately need wire. That's why I haven't been making copper coils, is I have ran out of wire, and it is expensive as F these days. And it's a lot of work. To get this wire, first you have to strip with like freaking knife this wire, and often there's like plastic coatings upon plastic coatings, so you have to like strip it with several times with knives. It's a whole lot of work. See, here's the X-Acto knives and the wire strippers. Like, it was a ridiculous amount of work. It is a ridiculous amount of work when you have to do it all. So this is a video on all these different sacred vortex geometry. So that is a video we're going to play in another episode. I'm saving it for the Science of Sound. Here you can see the outer black nano coating shell casing that it forms, then cracked open the inner, the blue diatomic, and then the white inside and clear gelatinous monoatomics and the different forms. That's all from copper. That was all just copper inside of what it forms in these things. Like, that looks like it's alive. No, that's just frickin' copper. Like, that is just copper. Exactly. Like, doing a reno, like, got any scraps, send me your all wires, like any wire, but especially copper wire. Or, you know, as ridiculous as it is to say, gold, silver, and we will be doing some of those experiments today as well. But yeah, we are doing the real alchemy and the metals, transmuting metals, and they are freaking alive. Once again, why I need the mass spectrometer so badly. Here it's again forming the crazy crystalline layer. It's like a silver copper mix that does it that way. Again, a bunch of the structures that have grown, the nanotubes. These are quite epic specimens, actually. Usually they fall apart so easily it's hard to get them in that shape. The full red and blue, baby, red and blue. Add in some white, and you got America. Happy 4th of July, America, coming up tomorrow. But see down here the green as it dries and oxidizes. They are alive. It's all alive. It lives. When you crack them open, those tubes and everything, this is what's inside of those tubes. They are alive. America, it is alive. F yeah, America, we are alive. Coming to you live. It's alive. F yeah, it's freaking alive. The yellow sulfuric state. Oh my god, Illuminati confirmed. It is the Freemason symbol happening in monoatomic clustered nano nature. Illuminati, homunculus Illuminati confirmed. Here it is again. Look at that. Boom. Homunculus Illuminati confirmed. Once again on my oven rack, making silkscreen shirts. I'm misprinting. Look at it in the red state, in the inside the blue. The blue goo inside the red state metal. And these are all tubes that formed, that eroded away from the copper anode that was up here. This is all self-arranged nanomaterials that grew and formed all on their own. I'll save that one for another day. Can't give all the goodies out all at one time, right? So this one right here was the one that I put little solenoid right here, little solenoid right there. Essentially what Matt's saying for the electroculture, just like the standard Keshi pen thing, and had two of them using as an anode and a cathode, and that I connected it to the voltmeter, and it was like 5 or 6 volts or something like that was coming out, and it lasted for months until I forgot about it and it dried out. I'm making noting it now because I do need to try to replicate these experiments and advance this technology. Now the time is right for it to all come forward. This is free energy alchemy at its finest. Hydrogen and monoatomics. Different nanoclusters forming. And to use this stuff in plasma reactions, gas vacuum tubes, right? This is another thing that this Ormus stuff is supposed to react with different fusions and nuclear reactions and stuff. Just like with microwaves. Like, look how much current it's producing, and the hydrogen. Only 5 volts. I also experimented with having some mirrors in there and checking mirrors, rotating mirrors and magnets and coils and crystals. You combine all of those, and I think you might just have the ingredients to make yourself a portal. Alright, so that concludes that portion of this alchemy lesson, and we're just going to compare here live on air what those guys look like one last time, as I'm going to put on the next lecture. And from this next lecture right here, from the Free Energy SIG group think tank, I will be working on these alchemy experiments and doing updates throughout. Oh my god, I'm sorry, the rock is still on repeat. There we go. No more annoying music. My apologies. Hopefully it wasn't annoying and I caught it in time that it didn't get too repetitive. Here we go. Let me know how the sound is.
The Free Energy Special Interest Group, where science meets spirituality in the quest for truth and knowledge to free humanity and transform this planet into a paradise.
Hello. Hi, everyone. This is Crystal. I am the founder of Physic. Physic is a free energy
Crystal.
special interest
Crystal's
group.
awesome.
Welcome, everyone.
Crystal needs to come on the show.
Physics 113th meeting. And today is the 7th of June. It's the first Wednesday of the month. We hold our physics meetings every first Wednesday of the month, and we have some of the most brilliant speakers at physics. We're proud to say. And thank you, folks, for taking time off to be with us live. Of course, you have a lot of benefits attending the meetings live because you can interact with us and the speaker especially and ask live questions and have a sort of like a forum. So I would like to share screen now to show you our agenda for the day, for today's meeting. Okay, so I'm going to dive headlong to it. Everyone, I suppose, here knows what physics is about. Unfortunately, not all the viewers do, so I'm going to have to do this PowerPoint presentation very quickly. Okay, sorry, the mouse is a bit stubborn. There you go. Right, so we are a special interest group for free energy. This is our 113th meeting. I'm afraid Dr. Frestres is not here today. There's a passing of a member of the family that's silently send our condolences and deepest sympathy to him. His sister has passed away recently. And I have Pontus Hefger with me, who's the head of the R&D teams in physics. And I suppose James Rink is here. James, are you here? James, sometimes very busy attending conferences and giving presentations, so he's excused. We have our meetings, as I said, once a month with one speaker of technology and the other one from the spiritual side of things. And today's agenda is the first speaker, being our returning physics brother speaker, Fernando Vosa. Speaking on the temple buildings and the creation of sacred space, Fernando had been on his research tour of South Asia for the last few months. And he actually has amassed a lot of beautiful photographs that he's sharing for the first time. And is sharing it through physics. And we're so honored. Thank you, bro. He will be sharing his research findings after visiting over 100 ancient sites, including Machu Picchu, Chichen Itza, Chaco Canyon, Adam's Calendar, Teotihuacan, and most recently Angkor Wat in Cambodia. It is always a delight watching his fully illustrated talk with such flamboyant creativity, rich with his psychedelic mystical art. So staring at them sometimes actually brings an awakening of sorts, you know, which is...
Sorry, paused it there, and oh goodness, FESIG113. Here's the video in the live chat right now for anyone. Actually, everyone should go over and subscribe and tell them that I sent you and that they need to come on the show, The Real Science, and we need to come on an FSCG or FESIG in the future, right? All right, so I'm gonna shut up and let Crystal take it away, and let Fernando Vosa take it away as just absolutely epic work.
Substantiated with his narration.